and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, content creators, or the production company.
Welcome to the Foundations of Freedom with Jerome Huyler. A strong, vigorous economy runs on a division of labor. While some produce the goods, others provide the services we, the people, need and want. But behind everything we do, our work, our businesses, our daily lives, are the political decisions our leaders make in our name. Since we elect the men and women who write the laws that create the conditions in which we all prosper or perish, we all need to be fully informed political participants. The silent majority can no longer afford to remain silent. One of the most valuable services a free people require is the clarification of complex social, economic, and political ideas. Other media platforms offer biting commentary on the hot-button headlines of the day. This podcast service will explore the underlying causes of and the effective cures for what ails us. And this nation is ailing. Ultimately, to preserve the American dream, we will have to retrieve the principles that made that dream possible. But there are more pressing issues and concrete decisions to consider. So please stay tuned.
In both life and business, knowing when enough is enough. Lao Tzu once said, "He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough." This ancient wisdom highlights the power of simplicity. In search engine optimization, overloading a page with keywords or plugins can ruin performance. Knowing when to stop is crucial. Simplicity ranks better, on Google and in life. Embrace moderation for success.
Hello, and welcome back to the Foundations of Freedom with Jerome Huyler. This is episode 9, where we will be discussing the goodness that greatness begot. The question we want to settle today is just how good, how virtuous, and how moral has America been over its long history? It's not breaking news to say that there are a lot of Americans who demean and denigrate this country as it is currently constituted. It's not just Trump they oppose. They will tell you present-day America is as bad as the past has ever been. This alleged land of the free, the critics say, is filled with racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, conservative hate speech, Republican voter suppression, toxic masculinity, and rampant police brutality, and I'm sure I maybe missed a couple. Okay, but what's the basic complaint? At the deepest level, it's the country's embrace of capitalism. The progressive left regards capitalism as a corrupt, look out for number one, dog eat dog, me system that fosters extreme economic inequality and encourages the worst kind of human greed. Now, does any of this criticism hold water? How close to the truth is it really? And do Americans have much to be ashamed of? Or are we entitled to feel a deep, swelling pride in this place we call home? Jerry, what good will it do to make America great again if America was never that good to begin with?
Okay, let me begin by warning our viewers that this episode will include a good number of important quotations. I would recommend multiple viewings to digest them all. It wouldn't be bad to write some down either. Now, let me set up the discussion by quoting a journalist who has placed our question in a most appropriate context. This is what Virginia Postel wrote in the New York Post on February 6, 2017. She writes, "Cultures are held together by the stories they tell about themselves, and America is struggling to find a new national story, one that can acknowledge past injustices without becoming defined by them. The old all or nothing morality tale of good America has too often been superseded by an all or nothing morality tale of evil America, which proclaims that every apparently positive accomplishment disguises a sadistic reality. Every above-mentioned slam that Vlad spoke about just now is either brazen disinformation or an outright lie. My view is this: Americans, the freest and most prosperous, are the most generous and caring people to ever people the planet. It is no accident that we are the freest and most prosperous. The two go together, as do their opposites, tyranny and poverty. The critics look out and see not millions of individuals striving to better their conditions, but so many targeted and exploited ethnic, racial, economic, and gendered minority groups tied together by oppressive bonds of what the left today calls intersectionality. That means everyone is all targeted, exploited, and oppressed, and all these racial and ethnic groups share that in common. Above all, woke activists decry the corrosive effects of capitalism on the social fabric. They even proclaim socialism as their end all and be all. No longer under capitalism do people come together or care for one another, so the left says. In the space once occupied by the common good, quote unquote, they bear witness to a dog-eat-dog survival of the fittest, look out for number one wasteland marred by toxic masculinity and white supremacy. As Robert Reich, a former Commerce Secretary and longtime critic of America, concluded, quote, "This is not a society, it's not even a civilization, because there's no civility at its core. The radicals seek above all to elicit guilt, shame, and remorse from the general public. The man or woman who lacks pride and carries a burden of guilt for his or his country's actions is intellectually disarmed and unable to proudly defend himself or his country. He or she will not be able to push back against a withering criticism, however lacking in merit it may be. The left agrees with Karl Marx, who warned that the ruling ideas of any epoch are merely the ideas of the ruling class. Oppressor and oppressed, that is all the country's detractors can see. They say America's revolutionary ideology is nothing more than a slick trick to justify injustice and pacify a gullible populace. In a land allegedly devoted to liberty and justice for all, critical race theory, CRT, exposes the rampant violation of Black people's rights, while women decry the country's past history of gender discrimination. What do I say to all of this? Baloney. You've heard of fake news. This is fraudulent cultural criticism on a mind-numbing scale. No, it isn't wrong to point out how this nation's founding principles were compromised and violated from the start. The past was a brutal and cruel place filled with injustice. What the critics failed to notice, however, is one, how historically unprecedented the founders' invocation of equality was. Two, the remarkable progress the country has made in realizing the dream of equality. And three, that it was precisely that dream, the dream of equality, proclaimed over and over by courageous civil rights and women's rights leaders, that made progress toward real equality possible. And that's the equality we enjoy today. Martin Luther King had a dream, quote, that one day this nation would live out the meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. All Martin Luther King asked is for America to fulfill its founding ideals. And after launching the women's rights movement at the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention in upstate New York, Elizabeth Cady Stanton also recalled Jefferson's July 4th declaration, demanding, quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, unquote. Yes, it took far too long to achieve the equality that was proclaimed in 1776. And no doubt there are still racists among us. Haters will hate. They can't help themselves. But it was the nation's founding first principles that accompanied every milepost of progress the country passed on her journey to fulfill those noblest of all ideals, liberty and equality. Thankfully, the battles are well behind us.
So then, how would you describe the country's cultural character? What traits and predispositions should we focus on and emphasize, Jerry?
I say this as a conclusion. If men were at last free to live for themselves, it did not mean they had to live by or only for themselves. If America became a nation of self-interested movers, she also became a nation of joiners. Americans united over a multitude of worthy causes, never hesitating to lend a neighbor in need a helping hand. From the earliest years, America formed deep fraternal bonds to further their shared values and mutual interests. Only now, the friendships, partnerships, associations, righteous crusades, and commercial projects would be of voluntary and mutual accord. Alexis de Tocqueville, the famous French visitor and aristocrat, captured and chronicled the American experience in the early 19th century. He found that Americans, quote, have carried to the highest perfection the art of pursuing in common the object of their common desires, and have applied this new science to the greatest number of purposes, unquote. Echoing the same sentiment, but writing half a century later, the philosopher James Bryce wrote, quote, democracy has not only taught the Americans how to use liberty without abusing it and how to secure equality, it has also taught them fraternity. There is in the United States a sort of kindliness, a sense of human fellowship, a recognition of the duty of mutual help owed by man to man, stronger than anywhere in the old world, and certainly stronger than in the upper or middle classes of England, France, or Germany, unquote. Writing 30 years later, the noted visitor and philosopher George Santayana observed, quote, everywhere cooperation is taken for granted as something that no one would be so mean or short-sighted as to refuse. Together with the will to work and to prosper, it is the essence of Americanism, end quote.
Well, that's the past. What part of it is still true today, though? And can't we describe today's Americans as content to live a look out for number one, me only kind of life?
Americans today form or join associations for every imaginable purpose under heaven. There are trade associations, labor unions, fraternal orders, service societies, veterans organizations, self-help groups, medical societies, alumni unions, and campus sororities and fraternities, think tanks, animal rescue groups, and gun, fan, and auto clubs, to name a few. Leisure and ample disposable income makes it all possible. We are as much a group of joiners today as we have ever been. In fact, today, due to the excessive leisure time that so many of us have, we are more prone to join groups and become members of something that is larger than ourselves. But the largest association of all, the one to which virtually every American belongs, is the free market itself. While it is most often associated with the fierce competition it fosters, it is really a vast cooperative endeavor, allowing millions of voluntary, mutually rewarding deals to be struck daily. That is an example of cooperation and looking out not just for ourselves, but for everyone involved. Only equality of opportunity cannot guarantee equality of result. All are not equally inquisitive, talented, or fixated on self-advancement. The laissez-faire economy guaranteed an eventual inequality in the distribution of wealth. That's just as it was meant to be and must be. For the founders, that posed no moral difficulty. Jefferson expressed it best, quote, to take from one because it is thought his own industry and that of his fathers has acquired too much, in order to spare to others who or whose fathers have not exerted equal industry and skill, is to violate arbitrarily the first principle of association, the guarantee to everyone the free exercise of his industry and possession of the fruits acquired by it, unquote. There is something else about the selfishness Americans practice. It leaves millions with the financial means to contribute to public spirited projects or just partake of charitable good works. Why not share one's good fortune with those who have less and are in need? That amounts to no great sacrifice for a free and prosperous people. Let me just interject one example of that. People are asked to send $11 a month to Tunnel of Towers Foundation that began right after the trade towers fell on 9/11. To date, Tunnel to Towers has provided 2,000 families with convenient, paid for homes that are easily accessible. And they've also provided 10,000 shelters to our veterans who were taken off of the street by Tunnel to Towers and put in suitable, livable shelters. Just one example of the goodness that greatness begot.
So, would you conclude that America was or is great, and that the American people are not just great, but good as well?
I will put it like this: any nation is as great as it is free. Any nation is as great as it is free. Prosperity is the material expression of a nation's greatness and its greatest practical reward. Rooted in the freedom it affords individuals to strive and succeed in life, that greatness continues to furnish a great deal of goodness. Between 1956 and 2010, the annual Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon for Muscular Dystrophy invited the world's greatest talents to perform for millions of TV viewers. More than $2 trillion was raised to help Jerry's kids. To this day, Danny Thomas's St. Jude's Children's Hospital saved the lives of disease-stricken children while assuring their grateful parents, "Don't worry, we won't send you a bill." For more details, see the Almanac of American Philanthropy, over 1,300 pages listing the foundations and institutions devoted to doing good works all across America and throughout the world. Americans, the freest and most prosperous, as I said above, are the most generous and caring people to ever people the planet. Tell that to the next woke radical you speak to. No sooner does a catastrophe strike, like the devastating floodwaters that recently took the lives of so many girls and adults at Camp Mystic, along with adults who were living in the area, then Americans the country over show up to do whatever good can yet be done for the survivors. And this is what is going on in America today. People all over the country contributing to help these families that are suffering so much from the loss of their loved ones.
So, Jerry, how would you conclude this discussion then? What is the most basic point you could make to explain the goodness that greatness begot?
Slavery and the position of women notwithstanding, young America offered its white male settlers a greater measure of freedom than can be found in any other place or time. Never before were men presented with a greater range of opportunities. During his visit to America in the 1790s, J. Hector St. John de Crevecoeur explained the phenomenon this way. This is an extended quote. Bear with me, viewers. Quote, no sooner does an American arrive, no matter of what condition, than his eyes are opened on the fair prospects. Has he any particular talent or industry? He exerts it in order to procure a livelihood, and it succeeds. Is he a merchant? The avenues of trade are infinite. Is he eminent in any respect? He will be employed and respected. Does he love a country life? Pleasant farms present themselves. Is he a laborer, sober and industrious? He need not go many miles nor receive many informations before he will be hired and well fed at the table of his employer. Does he want uncultivated land? Thousands of acres present themselves. Whatever be his talents or inclination, if they are moderate, he will satisfy them, unquote. Now, Crevecoeur, who settled in America in the 1790s, did not merely catalog the ample varieties of opportunity that awaited the lowliest sojourner in the free soil of America. More fundamentally, he depicted the opportunity-fed transformation that took root in the soul of the immigrant voyager. Quote, he no sooner breathes our air than he forms schemes and embarks in designs he never would have thought of in his own country. He begins to feel the effects of a sort of resurrection. Hitherto, he had not lived, but simply vegetated. He now feels himself a man because he is treated as such. Judge what an alteration there must arise in the mind of and thoughts of this man. He begins to forget his former servitude and dependence. His heart involuntarily swells and glows. If he is a good man, he forms schemes of future prosperity. He proposes to educate his children better than he has been educated himself. He thinks of future modes of conduct, feels an ardor to labor he never felt before. Pride steps in and leads him to everything that the laws do not forbid. He sees happiness and prosperity in all places disseminated. He meets with hospitality, kindness, and plenty everywhere. From involuntary idleness, servile dependency, penury, and useless labor, he has passed to toils of a very different nature, rewarded by ample substance. This is an American, unquote. And let me say that despite all of the political shackles like high taxes, burdensome business regulations that the American government on every level places on entrepreneurs today, this description still describes visitors, immigrants to our shores. We still give every opportunity to people who will come here to work, to obey the law, and to struggle, survive, and flourish. That is the goodness that greatness begot.
Well, thanks again for another amazing episode, Jerry. And for the listeners, viewers, again, if you've stuck with us this far, thank you, sincerely. But don't let this be the end. As I've said before in previous episodes, let it be the beginning of action. If today's message struck a chord, don't keep it to yourself. Please share this episode across your social media, start the conversation Wake others up to what's really going on and to the solutions that we've been laying out. The next step we recommend is learn who your local representatives are. Reach out to them, write to them, call them. Speak up about the reckless spending, the exploding national debt, and the desperate need for meaningful and the desperate need we have for meaningful cuts. We've made it super simple. Dr. Huyler's link tree, you'll find in the resources at the end of this episode, has a downloadable pre-written letter you can send today. You'll find all the links to those resources at the end of the show. You want to explore these ideas further or even further? Dr. Huyler's books are available on Amazon. They're essential reading for anyone who wants to rediscover the founding principles and the economic truths that made America great and can still turn the tide. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble channels to catch all the episodes of this podcast called Foundations of Freedom. You can search for it or find the link in the resources tab, as I said before, plus all more content coming soon. You can follow Jerome Huyler on LinkedIn. You can follow him on Quora. And there you'll find he's regularly posting very powerful insights, just like you hear in this podcast, joining the conversation with others who also care deep about the truth. Now, above all, what I'm trying to say is take action. Listen to this podcast, do all the other things we're suggesting, do it. Don't just listen and just let it go. Take action. This goes beyond politics. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on. It's about defending your liberty, protecting your family, and safeguarding the future of this nation and everyone you know. It begins with you. It begins now. From both of us, Dr. Jerome Huyler, I'm Vlad Gutenmakher. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for reflecting. And most of all, thank you for giving a darn. Until next time, stay aware, stay engaged, and stay free.